So you have to get more business, or you find more profit. But responsibility shows up first, then the qualifications come later. The problems show up, then we rise to solve them, and that's how we grow. And to me, the real problem isn't feeling unqualified. The real problem is when we do wait. The real problem is when we wait to feel ready. That's when we start missing out. What are we missing? What are the opportunities we miss when we wait to feel ready? Welcome to All Can Know Kant, the podcast where we toss out excuses, face our fears, and reclaim control. I'm Jeff Luther, your guide to mastering the chaos and turning obstacles into opportunities. Whether you're an entrepreneur navigating the ups and the downs of building a successful business, or someone ready to rewrite the rules of your life, this is your space to grow, to push boundaries, and to embrace doing the hard shit that leads to greatness. Together, we'll explore stories of resilience, strategies for overcoming, and the mindset shifts that let you build a life on your terms. I use my experience with a life-altering diagnosis to help you find the can in every can't. So buckle up, because it's time to stop living in can't and start thriving in all can. You choose. Welcome back to All Can Know Kant. This is the podcast where we turn obstacles into opportunities. And a lot of times as coaches or podcast hosts, the sentiment is that these things are easy. And this is a podcast where I don't want to pretend life is easy or it's supposed to be easy. And if it's not easy, we're doing it wrong. But I want us to focus on proving to ourselves that we can handle hard things. I'm Jeff Luther, and if you've ever felt stuck, overwhelmed, or like you're one bad day away from everything falling apart, then you're probably in the right place. I'm your host. And I like to tell folks we don't wait for confidence. We don't wait for perfect timing. In my story and what I try to live by is just take one small step, just one small step forward. And I always say, if you take a step, the ground will find you. And in my case, the ground found me kind of on my face, but it still found me. It didn't let me fall. Today's episode is pretty simple. It might hit a little harder than you expect, and it might not mean anything to you. But I want to get right into it about entrepreneurship. I started my coaching business, I don't know, 2 years ago, a little over a year ago, year and a half. And I had my first session with a new client the other day. And this guy just bought a business, super sharp, corporate background, knows operations really well, knows leadership from a corporate perspective or internal perspective. But he said something that made me really think. It kind of stopped me for a second. And he said, I don't think I'm qualified to own a business. It wasn't what he said that struck me, but what struck me is almost every business owner that I've ever come in contact with has felt the same thing or similar. More like not ready or wasn't prepared. But there's this strange belief that one day somebody's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, congrats, you're now qualified to be a business owner. That day never comes. It just doesn't happen. And you're not qualified for the next step or the next step or the next step. You're not qualified to have $1 million business. You're not qualified to have a $10 million business. You're not qualified to have a $100 million business. Whatever it is, we always feel that way. And for this guy, especially coming from the corporate background, in the corporate world, someone decides that for you. They decide that you're ready. You get a promotion, or you take certain courses and you get certifications. You have performance reviews. You have KRAs you're supposed to hit. You have different criteria you have to meet. There's hierarchy. There's structure. But entrepreneurship is ugly. I mean, it might look really nice and neat and tucked away from the outside, but it is not. No one sits you down and tells you that you're ready. Entrepreneurship does not have HR. They don't have a personnel director. You become qualified by doing the job. It would be like learning to swim, right? You can read about water all day long. You can read about buoyancy. You can read about how to move, but you don't become a swimmer until you actually get in the pool. Everybody starts unqualified. Think about the first time somebody handed you a newborn baby. For those of you that are parents out there, or those of you that have been around babies, there's not a license that says, here you go. You're now qualified to have a baby. You just figure it out. Here's your baby, figure it out. Make sure it doesn't die. It's kind of it. The same thing happens in entrepreneurship. Fortunately, I hope those of you that are listening intently right now, fortunately in entrepreneurship, you have a lot more freedom for mistakes than with having a baby. Entrepreneurship, what I always tell my folks, when the folks that work on my team come up with a question and they're like, oh, I did this because of this. I just didn't know what to do. I always go back to, hey, look, short of breaking the law, there is nothing you can do in this organization that we won't survive or we can't make right or we can't fix. So in entrepreneurship, you can make mistakes. Every entrepreneur I know has that moment where they thought, like, holy crap, now I'm the adult in the room. People are looking at me. Feeling unqualified is not a red flag. It's not a warning. It's usually a sign. It's a sign that you're growing. And that's kind of how entrepreneurship works. You rise to the level of the need. I can tell you a personal story about me and entrepreneurship. When I had my first office, when I started my company, I started out in my home and then I bought a duplex that was near that home, and I converted half of it to rent out and half of it I had as office space. And then from there, I graduated into office space, which, by the way, I really didn't need any of that, which is probably a really good story for another day, but it made me feel good. When I got into this office space, I remember I had the wall across from my desk painted in chalkboard paint. That's where I would make all my notes. I think this was before the time of whiteboard paint. But I'd make notes on the wall, and then also that was where my door was to go in and out of my office. And one day I wrote my payroll number above the door. It was like $7,300 something bucks. It was every 2 weeks. So it was not a big number, but I wrote that above the door. And every time I left the office, I would look up at it, and I would sit there some days and look at it. At the beginning, when I wrote it, it felt like a target. Okay, that's the number I want to hit. That's the number I want to hit. That's the number I want to hit. It was something to aim for. Something that would be, it was almost like a nice to have, like, all right, I did it. But then one day, I think somebody in my office, or somebody was in my office visiting and asked me about it. I don't remember what it was, but I remember that it changed in my head. I was looking at that number, then I realized, oh, wow, that's not a goal. Like, that's payroll. Because to me, it was almost a game. That was the payroll number I had to hit. But then I was like, whoa, that's payroll. That wasn't a number I wanted to hit. That was a number that I had to hit. That's the moment that it really hits you as a business owner, or at least for me, that was the moment that it hit me that people were depending on me. Not only my employees, but their families, like the people that they had to feed and clothe and protect and shelter and all those things. So your employees are relying on you. Their families are relying on you. And then you have lending institutions that really rely on you. Rent was being paid with that money. Groceries were being bought with that money. Mortgages were being paid with that money. And birthday gifts and Christmas gifts and all the things. And I remember thinking, whoa, am I really qualified for all these people to rely on me for this? No one gave me a certificate that said I was qualified to carry that responsibility. No one came and tapped me on the shoulder, but that's how entrepreneurship works. The responsibility shows up as you grow the business and you do things in your business to make it grow. The responsibilities kind of come after the fact with that. When you buy a new piece of equipment, then you have to pay for it. Then you have to maintain it.
As you know, I've been coaching for a little over a year now, and my coach just laid something pretty heavy on me. They've challenged me to have 50 powerful coaching conversations booked within the next 30 days. So if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, maybe successful but unfulfilled, or you just need to talk something through with someone that you know will listen, then I would love to have that conversation with you. This is not a tactic. There's no sales pitch. It's just one powerful conversation. This is complimentary to you. So if you want in, send me a message and I'll send you the link. I got you.
So you have to go, you get more business or you find more profit. But responsibility shows up first, then the qualifications come later. The problems show up, then we rise to solve them, and that's how we grow. And to me, the real problem isn't feeling unqualified. The real problem is when we do wait. The real problem is when we wait to feel ready. That's when we start missing out. What are we missing? What are the opportunities we miss when we wait to feel ready? If you wait until you feel qualified, you can absolutely wait forever. Every level of growth requires stepping into something that you have never done before. Your first hire in your business is something you have never done before. Your first big client, I remember the first big contract we got. That first big contract. I knew for certain I was not ready for that. But when it was over, they asked me for another one. They asked me to do another project. Your first million in revenue, you're not ready. The first time I hit a speaking stage, I wasn't ready. Every level of growth asks you to become someone you haven't been yet. What actually creates confidence doesn't come from thinking. Confidence comes from evidence. Our brain, when our brain doesn't have data, it makes it up. So you don't have confidence about going into something you've never done before. You get that confidence from evidence. When we give our brain data of what it can look forward to in the future, that's where our confidence comes from. And you build confidence through repetition. You'll never get there if you don't just take that step forward. You build confidence through repetition, through decisions that you make, through making mistakes. And oh my gosh, I've made tons. But you get that confidence through surviving those mistakes. Confidence works a lot like strength training, like lifting weights. You put weight on a bar and you lift it up. You add weight, you lift it up. You add weight, you lift it up. Business ownership works the same way. You make decisions. Sometimes those result in problems and you fix them. And then you learn as you go. So I think about that number over my office door sometimes. It's like $7,300. Wasn't a round number like that, but somewhere in that ballpark. And at the time, it felt enormous. And then some days it felt super heavy. It felt like a responsibility that was not qualified to have, not qualified to carry. Here's the truth about business ownership, and I think most will tell you. Nobody is qualified at the beginning. The people who build great companies aren't the ones who waited until they felt ready. Usually, there are exceptions. But they're the ones who accepted the responsibility, figured it out along the way, and took a step forward. Sometimes qualification does not come before the job. Sometimes the job is what makes you qualified. So if you're waiting until you feel ready, you might be waiting for a day that never comes. And I'll repeat that. If you are waiting until you feel ready, you might be waiting for a day that never comes. Sometimes courage isn't confidence. Sometimes courage is simply just doing the thing before you're qualified. Sometimes courage is just that blind leap. Nobody starts ready. But they do have to start by being willing. You have to be willing. And that's willing to make a mistake, willing to fail, willing to succeed, willing to take that step, and willing to take the responsibility of what comes with it when you are successful. So, if this episode hit you, or if this is something that you've been thinking about, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Stop waiting. Stop waiting. Not for the next year, not when things calm down, not when it feels right. Stop today. Pick one thing you've been avoiding, something small, something you've been telling yourself, okay, well, I'm not quite ready yet. Not ready to do this, not ready for, or I'll do it when I'm ready, whatever that is. And then I'm going to ask you just to give it 30 seconds. That's it. Not perfect, not finished, not fast, not the best, just started. Just 30 seconds. Because action is what builds our proof. And proof, that's what builds confidence. That's what gives our brain data. And if you want help with that, if you want help with just that one thing, if you want a simple, super simple tool to actually do this in your own time, in your own life, I've got a free first step worksheet that walks you right through it. I'll put it in the show notes. Actually, this wasn't part of this podcast, but I do have a worksheet that helps work through this. What are you scared of? Say it out loud. What's the reality? What's the story you're telling yourself? And then is that true? And you can walk through that worksheet if you're feeling stuck. You can grab it. I'll put it in the show notes. If you know somebody who's stuck right now, or if maybe this applies to you, somebody waiting to feel ready, send them this episode. It might be like the small little nudge they need. As always, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you. And until next time, I'll look forward to seeing you again. And remember, you don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. I'm Jeff Luther, your host of All Can Know Kant, and I absolutely can't wait until next time when I get to see you. Thanks for listening to All Can Know Kant. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, it's not about the chaos you face. It's about how you choose to take back control. It's about finding that one small can in the can't you're given and grinding it down. Find your angle, carve your place out in the world, and get the fucking win. Do that by finding what you can do and not listening to what you can't. You choose. Be sure to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps me reach more people that are ready to embrace the all can mindset. And it lets them know there's someone that's willing to walk with them no matter how dark the path gets. You can find me on Insta at JDLuther 2.0 and allcan_know-kant. This is where I share more tips, stories, inspiration to help fuel your journey. And until next time, keep pushing boundaries, breaking limits, proving to yourself that anything is possible, even when you're told it isn't. Remember, life's not about can't. It's all can. Go prove them wrong.